Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. Sorry about that. Just a minor stroke, but I'm good now. It's all good.
What up, Jenna Wolfe?
How you doing, Nick?
How are you doing? You nailed the handshake, though. That's more important.
I nailed
that was impressive, yeah.
We call it Spicy Friday when we reach the end of the week intact. Most of us are intact. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. On the program today, Aaron Rodgers had this Dallas game circled on his calendar. We'll tell you why. Stefon Diggs says you should believe in the rumors you hear. And Thursday Night Football was must-watch television last night on Fox. Let's get right to that game. Jared Goff and the Rams taking on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks in Seattle. We picked this one up late. Under 3 minutes left in the fourth. Seahawks down 5, 4th and goal from the 5. Russ to Chris Carson for the touchdown, his 4th touchdown of the game for Russell Wilson. Rams trying to answer. Jared Goff's pass called incomplete. After review, Tedrick Thompson gets credit for what appeared to be an incredible interception right there. Seahawks were all fired up about it, but the Rams would get one last chance. Goff right here, finding Gerald Everett down the middle for 28 yards, and that would set up a Greg Zuerlein 44-yarder. Good snap, good hold, bad kick. Misses wide right. Seahawks hold on to win 30-29. Rams drop to 3rd place in the division. After the game, here's Sean McVay.
He just missed it, and we have a lot of confidence in Greg. It's one kick. He's made a lot of big kicks for us. He'll continue to make a lot of big kicks for us, and there was a lot of plays in this game. One play will never really determine the outcome.
When you're playing great teams, and you're a great team too, there's going to be some great plays out there that they're going to make, and we're going to make some, and it's going to go back and forth, and you can't get too high, too low, and I think that's what we did tonight. I thought the defense, like I said, stayed composed. The crowd was amazing tonight. I think offensively we kept believing. We had no doubt that we were going to get it done, and sure enough, we did.
Russ with some swagger at that post-game podium.
He's amazing.
Hey, that was a great game. That was a really fun game. It was a thriller right to the end. CC, was the game more about Russell Wilson's brilliance, or was it the Rams' lack of execution there?
First of all, I got to give the NFL players a lot of credit. And typically, when we went to Thursday Night Football, sometimes you would see that the product would suffer. These guys are in such a routine, especially earlier in the season, where they're not in great shape. But the last 2 Thursday nights, we have had spectacular contests where you had teams that are backs against the wall, that being the Rams in Philadelphia, going into a hostile environment. Philadelphia last week, to do what they did. And last night, seeing that game, that was a spectacular game. It's a matter of, are they going to run out of time? It's not a matter of who's going to lose the game, but who's going to run out of time. And it was the Rams, because of a field goal kicker, typically very, very dependable from long distance, is not able to convert what looked like a game-winning drive. So, to me, you have to go back over it. And if I was looking at what was one thing in this game that I thought was special, and it's Russell Wilson.
Man.
I mean, he's amazing. And Nick had talked about Russ and how he's so underrated and everything. Like, we don't give him credit for what he does with less. His overall accuracy with the football. If we look at the scouting report on Russell Wilson, I mean, if he is 6 foot, he's definitely a top 10 pick. But he wasn't. He slipped in the draft, and Seattle has done the right thing for Russell from the beginning. He beat out a guy in training camp. Instead of waiting, no, they gave him the job when he actually beat him out. But he is so special. In the pocket, understanding the game, trying to conserve his body, making sure people don't get big shots on him. He's got heart. He's got guts. He's a real franchise and such an impact leader. Like, to make guys, elevating guys. I watched from the first play of the game. And when Russell came onto the field, he acknowledged every man in the huddle, shook their hand, either hit them in the chest, fist bumped them, and that's how they started the game. Now, we know how he went on to play, but he's just on a whole nother level. We need to start trying to give him more credit than what he deserves. There's a reason why. He has the 2nd best quarterback rating
in NFL history.
All time.
Yeah.
All right, and you could see that last night. We don't give the receivers respect because they haven't earned it. But Russell Wilson, with this group, he was sensational last night.
He's the story. The Rams, we were hard on the Rams this week, and Todd Gurley had another tough game. Jared Goff, I thought, bounced back. And you guys are both right. Listen, Greg Zuerlein hit a 58-yard field goal in overtime to go to the Super Bowl. So this was an outlier event, him missing this kick to win the game. But it would have been a shame to me if he would have made the kick. Because Russell Wilson deserved, to use one of Cece's favorite phrases, to get on the winning bus. Russell Wilson was crying after the game because of the moment with the late owner, Paul Allen, the man who, it's Paul Allen's money that was going to Matt Flynn, who he had written that guaranteed check for, that allowed the team to make Russell the starting quarterback his rookie year, said, forget the money, go with the better player. And from that moment to where we sit here today, Russell Wilson has done every single thing you would want an elite franchise quarterback to do, the best of the best. That pass right there to Tyler Lockett that you just saw is the best play in the NFL so far this season. It is an A catch and an A triple plus throw. He's going to his left. I thought, and Joe Buck thought, he was throwing it away. No, he was throwing it to the only place in the end zone that was either going to be a touchdown or an incompletion. And so when you look at this team, when you look at, Russ had 4 touchdown passes yesterday to Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Chris Carson, and David Moore. When you look at how many teams we say, well, they don't have the offensive line, they don't have the receiving core. Is there any quarterback in football outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes that you could put on Seattle and make them better? I argue no. With what you need from them, with his availability, with his leadership, with his toughness, and with his pinpoint accuracy, he is the perfect quarterback for that team. He is playing as well as any player in the league this year outside of maybe Mahomes. And they won that game last night because they had the best player on the field by far. That was Russell Wilson.
I'm glad you mentioned Patty Mahomes. Also, we saw this year in Kyler Murray. If you're an NFL scout, man, you need to start looking for more of these baseball players because they can put their body, contort their body in different ways that normal conventional quarterbacks can't. He's running to his left, Nick. He throws a 35-yard strike because of his baseball. He's able to open up his hips and fire it on a line. Patty Mahomes is able to do that. We see Kyler early in his career able to do that. It is a special, special skill that has allowed them to be among the elite of the elite that we have.
Was Russell Wilson's performance last night dominant enough to put him at the front runner of the MVP conversations?
Well, you have to consider him. You definitely have to consider him. If you look at what he's doing, if you looked at everything, what guys are doing with their personnel, absolutely. Sitting at 4-1, you would have to consider him to be one of the best players in the league thus far. And Pete Carroll said it leading up to this game. I've never seen Russ better. He said now that numbers might not indicate it and all that. He said, but I've been around him his whole career. In practice, he's more focused in. He's more locked in. His accuracy, it couldn't be any better than at any other point in his career.
Right now, he's number 1 in the NFL in passer rating, number 1 in completion percentage, number 2 in yards per attempt, and number 1 in touchdowns. And so, to me, there's 2 people that are in the MVP conversation right now, Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. And when you talk, now that can change. We're only 5 weeks into the year, and for most teams, it's 4 weeks. But he's been that level of great. And I'm going to make a point that I made earlier in the week. How many teams in the NFC, if you replaced their quarterback with Russell Wilson, would become the overwhelming favorites? Dak playing as well as he is. You put Russell Wilson on the Cowboys, they're the best team in football by far. You put Russell Wilson on the Chicago Bears or Minnesota Vikings. If you do it on Minnesota,
Send him to Minnesota with Sierra. We'll take him.
Stefon Diggs ain't asking for no trade. And Chicago's probably the defending Super Bowl champions. Russell Wilson is, once again, I felt his coaches worked against him yesterday. It was on offense, him making magic. Aaron Donald was I think he watched the show yesterday, took some of the criticism from C personally. He was a man possessed. And Russell Wilson would not let him wreck the game. He was spectacular.
And he took over a tough locker room. And they did not make it easy on him.
No.
It was well documented. Him and Richard Sherman and some of these other players, how they disagreed on things. Now Russell's talent, longevity, and leadership won out. That it is finally Russell's team. It's not, Cam Chancellor, the Legion of Boom. No, Marshawn Lynch. No, this is Russell Wilson's team, and that was a great performance.
Hey guys, guys, this is Jenna Wolfe. I'm here to tell you about Noom. Some people think that all diet and weight loss plans are the same, but that's because they haven't tried Noom. Noom is a new, totally different approach to losing weight and getting healthy that uses psychology and small goals to help you change your habits, making it easy to lose the weight and keep it off for good. Noom combines the power of technology with real human support, offering as little or as much help as you want along the way. And since Noom is an app, it's always with you and easy to use, which makes it super easy to stay on track and reach your goals. It's just as simple to get started. Go online, answer a few quick questions, and they'll create a personalized program just for you. Noom can help you lose your old way of thinking about food and dieting. So what do you have to lose? Visit Noom.com/podcast, Noom.com/podcast, and start your 14-day trial today. Change your habits, change your mind, change for good with Noom. All right, moving on to action this weekend. Packers traveling to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Aaron Rodgers loves this matchup. He's 6-2 career against Dallas, and Jerry World is the site of his last playoff win. Both teams are 3-1, but both teams also coming off a loss, and both teams looking to get back on track in a log-jammed NFC. Cris, who do you think has the edge on Sunday, Packers or Cowboys?
You got to go with the boys. If you look at, they're healthier coming into the game. You look at the disappointment, especially offensively, the lack of points they were able to score in New Orleans, not able to go to New Orleans with Teddy Bridgewater as their starting quarterback. So for me, they come into the game the right way. We've seen this in the NFL. And teams backed against the wall, they need to win. They need a statement game. You see guys have responded. Green Bay is banged up. And without having Devontae Adams, he is their passing attack. They have no one else that puts any type of fear into the defense. Their tight ends haven't been overly involved in the passing game outside of the red zone. So what's Aaron Rodgers going to do? Are they going to run the ball? Oh, Green Bay? Is that what they're going to do? That's what they should do. But every time I get on TV and say Aaron Rodgers needs to be supported by some type of running game, what do? They run it a few times early, Jenna, to fool us. Then they start dropping him back. Aaron wins the game.
Then they pass 4 times on 1st and goal from the 1 in the 4th quarter.
And if they don't have balance, I don't believe, because the offensive line's banged up, Dallas and their pass rushers will make it impossible for Aaron Rodgers to build on that impressive record that he has against the Cowboys, Nick.
If the Packers are going to win, it's going to be because while they are much more banged up than the Cowboys had 2 relevant players not practice yesterday. They're 2 starting tackles. So Tyron Smith, we expect to be out with the high ankle sprain. La'el Collins hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday due to a back injury. That means Cam Fleming and who? Because right now the Cowboys only have one. They have a swing tackle on the roster. So either a guard's going to have to play tackle. So while the Packers have the flash player injured, Devontae Adams, and they have other guys, their backup running backs injured with the concussion. They have a much longer list of either limited participation. Absolutely. Brian Bulaga got dinged in this last game. So they have a longer injury report. The Cowboys being potential without both their starting tackles could really matter in this matchup against Preston and Zadarius Smith. Additionally, as you alluded to, Aaron Rodgers has an immense amount of success in this matchup, in this building against this team. In fact, the last playoff game Aaron Rodgers won was in this building back in 2016. To me, the question is going to be, can Rodgers, with limited weapons, do more than Zeke with a limited offensive line? Because I do not think the Cowboys are going to ask Dak to drop back 40 times, get in a throwing contest. I think the Cowboys are going to say, we have immense confidence in our defense that last week, even though we lost, didn't allow a touchdown, held New Orleans to just 4 field goals in that football game, and see if Zeke can rebound from the worst game, what I would argue is the worst game of his pro career.
So I was going to ask about that. Aaron Rodgers also has immense confidence in his defense as well, but last week, Zeke really couldn't get anything going against that Saints defense. You got a similar defense coming in Green Bay. How do you use Ezekiel Elliott in this game?
Man, you got to give him touches. And if you know you're hampered on the outside, you got to try to give him quick reads where he can get downhill. You know your guards and your center are intact. So for me, I'm not trying to run anything outside, Jenna. I'm trying to focus on Kenny Clark, a friend of the show. He said he watches the show all the time.
Yep.
Well, Kenny, I wasn't really happy with your defensive performance last week, buddy. Don't want to talk behind your back. Like to be able to say things to people's face because I like to be able to have a clear conscience about it. So for me, I'm going with their center, Fredericks, going against that interior of that Green Bay Packers and trying to get some of those gashes that we saw that Green Bay defense give up last week. I'm avoiding going outside because I know that the tackles are going to be stressed out as far as pass protection. And also, play action. It's always going to be good when you have the threat of Ezekiel Elliott. But ultimately, what does it boil down to? It boils down to Dak Prescott and the wide receivers making plays. The wide receivers have to get back to making plays and being playmakers like they were in week 1 and in week number 2. Ever since the Amari Cooper trade, we have seen when the wide receivers make big plays, and a lot of times we don't talk about them, we talk about Dak, and we put the blame on him. But you need separation, and you need to make some difficult catches. That is the chemistry that you try to build with a quarterback. No, I don't expect you to be perfect all the time, Dak, but I also expect to be able to make some catches, and that's what we saw in last night's game. Guys make some spectacular catches because it gives the offense confidence. It gives the quarterback confidence that he doesn't feel like I have to be perfect on every single throw.
And good news for Dallas on the Amari Cooper front. After a surprising MRI midweek last week and being limited in practice on Wednesday, he was listed as a full participant this past Thursday. So whatever he was dealing with injury-wise, there's no concern he's going to miss the game. And in fact, they didn't even think they need to limit him in practice. I do want to remind the audience the critical nature of this football game. It's not just the whole nation's going to be watching. There's oddly only 2 4 p.m. Eastern games this weekend. This one and one other. So the whole football, there's 10 at 1 p.m., there's 2 at 4 p.m. So everyone's going to be watching 2 marquee franchises. If the Cowboys lose this game, people are going to say, man, they were a product of their environment, if you will. Giants, Washington, Miami.
Right.
How many teams would have been 3-0 with the Giants, not the Danny Dimes Giants, the Eli Manning Giants, the Daniel Snyder Washington team, and then Miami that everyone's crushing this year? And if Green Bay loses this game, all those good feelings, Green Bay's finally got a defense. Rodgers doesn't care if the numbers are down as long as we're winning. 3-2 is drastically different than 3-0 when you are in a division with a surprisingly competent Detroit team, an underachieving but still 2-2 Minnesota team, and a Chicago team that is able to win no matter who their quarterback is because their defense is that dominant. And so I said it yesterday, I think they're going to be an 11-win team in this conference that does not win their division. The conference is that deep, that top-heavy. And so the winner of this game is going to be feeling great. The loser of this game, which I oddly think is going to be the home team Dallas Cowboys, going to have some soul-searching to do going into Week 6.
All right, it'll be a good one. On to the Colts and Chiefs. Before the season, many had this game circled as a matchup between Andrew Luck and Patrick Mahomes. But with Luck retiring and Jacoby Brissett stepping in, with the Colts at 2-2 and the Chiefs undefeated, man, this is a different conversation. Colts GM said Brissett, quote, hasn't flinched since replacing Luck, and he'll have to be absolutely stoic to keep up with that Chiefs offense. Nick, any chance the Colts can upset the Chiefs?
I'd be shocked. If this game were in Indy, it'd be a little bit different. This game's in Arrowhead, a rematch of a divisional playoff game, obviously no Andrew Luck, where the Colts through 3 quarters had 0 offensive points. They had 7 points through 3 quarters in the playoff game. That was on a blocked punt that was returned for a touchdown. The Colts twice in that game cut the score to a 2-score margin, and the Chiefs both times marched the length of the field to score a touchdown to make it a 3-score margin again. To me, the Colts are still my pick to win that division. And I think Jacoby, aside from the pick 6 he threw at the end of last week's game that kind of iced that surprising loss for them, the Colts have been a more than competent football team. But there's a reason they're 11-point underdogs, and Kansas City right now has been able to make do, without their left tackle. I don't think the Colts are going to be able to take advantage of that one weakness on the team, which is Patrick Mahomes' blind side, and I don't think they're going to be able to slow down this Chiefs offense.
Jenna, this is a game you have to be careful with because Indy's is still a very, very talented team. The reason why they lose last week's game is not only the turnovers at the end, but they had so many players injured in this game. I mean, they were at half strength going against the Raiders. So I expect them to be excited about this opportunity. Anytime you put NFL players in a situation where they can be embarrassed, the amount of detail, the time that they spend preparing, because that's a real motivator for them. I don't want to be made to look bad. It's different than trying to win the game. And if they're able to stay in this game, and Indy does have what I would call the kryptonite right now for Kansas City, and that's it. Can I get 34, 35 minutes of time possession? Can I have my offensive line knock their defensive line back constantly throughout the game? First down, 4, 5, 6 yards. Put Patty Mahomes on that sideline. Make them anxious, because that is the way we have seen. That is the number one way. There is no defense. What do you play? Cover 2? Play 2-man? Play cover 4? No, there ain't no defense right now that's stopping Patty Mahomes. What you got to do is keep him on the sideline over there conversating with Andy Reid and the rest of that prolific offensive talent that they have. Indy can do that. They have a great offensive line. Will they have the patience to be able to play it? Jacoby's got to play a clean game, but this is one of those watch-out games where you might think, oh, it was a great build-up, we don't have to worry about it. Every time in my experience in the league when I was a player and we felt that way, we end up either getting upset or we were in a fight for our life, and it ended up being a one-score game.
And to Chris's point, while I do think Kansas City's defense has improved, their run defense is not improved at all statistically. 31st run defense in the league this year. For the Colts, a lot of this, if they can make this a one-score game in the fourth quarter, make the Chiefs nervous, maybe have a lead late the way Detroit did, which was a game that did not go the way I thought it would. A lot of it's going to depend on who is available. Paris Campbell, Marlon Mack, and Malik Hooker. That's wide receiver number 2, running back number 1, safety number 1, didn't practice yesterday. T.Y. Hilton, the most talented player on their team, one of the most talented players on the team, was limited, and Darius Leonard, their great linebacker, was limited.
Both of them missed last week.
Exactly right. And so they're at least back to practice in some capacity. They need to get healthy in a hurry if they're going to have any chance of matching firepower with Kansas City.
Depleted roster, a defense that's not playing well, and you're at Arrowhead. It's going to be an uphill battle.
Tough.
All right, moving on to the Vikings now. When Stefon Diggs missed practice Wednesday for non-injury reasons, trade rumors began to swirl around the disgruntled wideout. As expected, it was the hot topic at practice yesterday. And while the goal is usually to squash rumors like this, Diggs didn't exactly follow the script.
You know, there's been speculation and stuff that you might want to be traded.
Speculation?
Do you want to be traded?
Is along with rumors and all that?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's truth to all rumors, you know? I mean, no matter how you dress it up, I won't be saying nothing on it. I won't be speaking on it at all. But there is truth to all rumors, I guess.
Okay, that's one way of handling it. What do you make of what's going on with Diggs out there in Minnesota?
Well, I know the Vikings don't want to trade him. They want him there. They've been very pleased with their wide receivers and overall productivity. Right now, they're just in a transformation of what kind of team. If you look at Mike Zimmer, how he coaches, he wants a physical defense. He wants a big physical offense. And the last couple years, he's gone through a couple different coordinators because it was well documented. They didn't play the type of style of football. They were throwing the ball all around the place, throwing the ball 40 times a game. And I want to win a championship. We need to run, play to our strength, build up the offensive line. They made a couple changes. Draft capital used on their center. He's a good player. Free agency, put other couple starters in there. So their offensive line is improved. But they are trying to turn this offense over to Dalvin Cook. They believe Dalvin Cook is the star of the future. And you can see in the first 3 games of the year, he is special when he's healthy. How many 1,000-yard receivers do you have? Because they have Adam Thielen and they have Stefon Diggs. I'm not going to get into what the Vikings think about him. I think Adam Thielen's a better route runner. I think he's a more consistent receiver. I think he's a better receiver. And I believe that some of that, and he's a hometown hero. He's got an amazing story. And I believe some of that and Kirk Cousins has gotten into Stefon Diggs' head that he believes that right now, because we're in the years of empowerment, in the NFL now, off the NBA, yes, it is true. So we will hear guys, because there's more guarantees, we will hear guys speak out more about them not being pleased compared to guys in the past just stomach it going to work and realizing there's not as much flexibility. But Minnesota has everything accommodating to the players. It is a player franchise. The Wolfe family, they have spent millions of dollars to build this franchise up. They got a new stadium. They got a new practice facility. Everything at the facility is geared on making the players comfortable. They have the state-of-the-art sports science right there next to them that have partnered to them. So with me, this is an issue of I need mine. And it's not money because he's just now starting a new contract. He wants the football. That could be it. And his complaint is probably more with the quarterback than it is with the organization.
So explain this to me. He got paid. He has his money. It's clearly very comfortable surroundings there in Minnesota. And he's the team's leading receiver right now.
Well,
so what are his wants?
That last part is true, but I would argue misleading. He is the team's leading receiver for a team that's 31st in passing. He's the team's leading receiver, but he's 53rd in the NFL in receiving. So he has more yards than anyone on the Vikings, but there's 52 guys in the league that have more yards than him. He's 83rd in catches and 79th in targets. Cris made this very clear. There's only a couple ways to make wide receivers happy. Money, stats, right? And winning, I suppose, would be the third one.
Yeah, it's distant.
But it's a distant.
I need those other two first.
Right. And so we got to also understand the context in which he signed that extension. He signed the extension right after the Minneapolis Miracle. Who caught that? Stefon Diggs. He probably in the moment, listen, a lot of these guys understandably have a healthy ego, thought he was going to become maybe the face not only of the receiving corps, but of the team. And so he signs the extension. It was a mid-round pick, so he had never really gotten paid. He's happy.
He was involved in a couple national commercials.
Right. We see him in the commercial. I don't even know what the brand is, but his hands get stuck to the recycling bins outside. And so okay, I'm going to become this star. Oh, and we're bringing in a quarterback. And last year, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, best year of his career. Not a huge year by superstar receiver standards, but the best year he's had.
Yes.
He and Thielen go 1,000.
Only time he's ever had 1,000 yards in his career.
Right. He and Thielen go 1,000. But something happened last year. Midway through the year, they fired John DeFilippo, a guy who we thought could maybe be a head coach. In fact, they ended up moving off him because of what Cris said. They want to run the ball more. And now this year, the quarterback's not playing well. They're not throwing the ball at all. And his contract extension has just kicked in. He's got this year and 4 more years left. He's like, this isn't what I signed up for. Not only am I not the face of the team, I'm not the face of the offense. I'm not even the face of the wide receiver room. I'm not getting the ball. And so you might think it's foolish, but you said you were surprised the way he handled the rumor, kind of adding fuel to the fire. Well, if you're trying to burn a house down, you want to add fuel to the fire. He wants to be traded. It's not in his interest to quash the rumor. He started the rumor. I'm not going to start a rumor and then when asked about the rumor, be like, that's a lie. He wants to be traded. He wants to make it uncomfortable. Now, if you just think he's going about it the wrong way, it's unprofessional, that's totally fair. But he wants out of Minnesota. When you got 4 years and 12 games left on a contract, it's not a good way to get out of it, except for to try to let the whole world know you're available and see if someone offers the Minnesota Vikings an offer that they find worthy.
Look, it just the whole thing bothers me that the NFL is in this empowerment phase where if you're not happy about something, you got yourself paid, you're very comfortable in your surroundings, but you're just you want more. So let me just open up my mouth a little bit and demand a trade. It just seems like a tough way to do business.
Well, this is the thing, Jenna. Sports has changed. Once you start getting into guarantees, if you go in and ask the guy how you doing, because this happens on a regular basis. You go and talk to your position coach, they ask how you doing. Guy's like, I'm not doing great. Well, what's the problem? I'd like to be targeted a little bit more. I thought the quarterback you guys gave 28 guaranteed large a year for 3 years was going to be better than what he is. And right now, look, moving forward, Adam Thielen's got a better story than me. He's a hometown hero. He's nothing against Adam, but there's only one ball to be able to go around. Dalvin Cook is the rising star in that organization. And you can see in the first few games, Zimmer's going to be the head coach. Ain't no pressure up there for his job. Now, how does this offense evolve going forward? He feels like I would be better off suited somewhere else. And there is no other way to get out, Jenna. Like, how else could he get out? If he wants to be moved somewhere, how else would he do it? He could tell his agent to call the team, tell the team, call some other teams. But when you are not happy, and I don't believe he had a whole bunch of options. A lot of times when you don't think it out well, you end up making a mistake. Him not coming to practice, I believe, was a mistake. Because I would go into the coach's office and tell him, I'm going to come to work, though. I'm not going to jeopardize my guarantees and the commitment I made to my teammates. All right? I might not be happy here, but until I get out of here, I'm going to do what I promised all these guys that I said I would do.
And just very quickly here, that's the only thing he's done that I take issue with is the not showing
practice.
up. I think it is every player's right in any sport, if they want to be traded, to tell people, I want to be traded. As long as you understand you're going to continue to show up once the season has begun if you're under contract. So as long as he doesn't all of a sudden before a game say, back's a little tight,
I
can't.
I have the flu,
right.
all of it the way we're seeing with Jalen Ramsey, who wants to get traded, who still hasn't been traded.
Right, and by the way, Jalen's also different because he hasn't been paid. So I understand Jalen a bit, and Stefon, as long as he still shows up, you're allowed to be disgruntled.
Sure.
You can be a disgruntled, productive employee.
Absolutely.
It's his job to try to continue to be productive.
Yeah, I know exactly that. I don't say anything.
Back here, first things first, we're joined by former All-Pro running back Brian Westbrook.
What's
Good
up, man?
morning,
How are you?
Brian.
Good morning.
Welcome
Good
back.
morning. Appreciate that.
That's a nice little blue suit you got there, buddy.
Blue is the color right now, man.
Awesome.
I like this. You got the Eagles green, man. They're going to invite you. They're going to keep inviting you back now. They're going to start.
I need the first invite.
They're going to start inviting you.
You know something, too? I was just telling office and everything, I'm in such a good mood. But now you brought that back.
I know. I went down the wrong road. Sorry.
They didn't invite me to. Well,
come on.
We'll get it later.
Come on. You had bad information.
We were blessed with a great game to chat about
job,
from
Jenna.
last
Get us
night,
back on
Thursday
track.
Night Football. Brian, let's get right to the highlights. Jared
Eagles.
Goff and the Rams taking on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks in Seattle. We picked this one up late, under 3 minutes left in the fourth.
Little hot.
Seahawks down 5. 4th and goal from the 5. Russ finds Chris Carson for the touchdown, his 4th touchdown of the game for Russ. Rams trying to answer Goff's pass. This one called incomplete, but after review, Tedrick Thompson gets credit for an incredible interception. That was awesome. Seahawks all fired up. But the Rams would get one last chance. Jared Goff dropping back, finding Gerald Everett down the middle for 28 yards, and it would set up a Greg Zuerlein 44-yard go-ahead field goal. Good snap, good hold. That's a bad kick. Misses wide right. Seahawks hold on to win 30-29 as the Rams drop to 3rd place in the division. Here's Rams head coach Sean McVay on that play that decided the game.
He just missed it, and we have a lot of confidence in Greg. It's one kick. He's made a lot of big kicks for us. He'll continue to make a lot of big kicks for us. And there was a lot of plays in this game. One play will never really determine the outcome.
When you're playing great teams, and you're a great team too, there's going to be some great plays out there that they're going to make, and we're going to make some, and it's going to go back and forth, and you can't get too high, too low, and I think that's what we did tonight. I thought the defense, like I said, stayed composed. The crowd was amazing tonight. I think offensively we kept believing. We had no doubt that we were going to get it done, and sure enough, we did.
Brian Westbrook, there was your star of the game right there, and Russell Wilson. And we'll talk about him and his MVP campaign in a second. But was last time more about his brilliance or the Rams' lack of execution?
First of all, that Rams secondary, that concerned me. What was going on back there with some veteran players? They just looked confused back there pointing fingers. And so it wasn't a great showing by that secondary. But when you talk about Russell Wilson, he's just a special player. He continues to show why he's obviously going to be in the MVP race. But he's a leader. He's a leader of men. He continues to show these guys by the play on the field with not a lot of talent around him why he should continue to be in the MVP race. He's able to throw the ball accurately. He's able to make plays with his legs, keep everyone involved, and then control the flow of the football game. Russell Wilson is a special player. I think that when you talk about MVP, you talk about Patrick Mahomes, you talk about Tom Brady, of course, but Russell Wilson should always be in the MVP conversation when you talk about a leader of men, as well as a guy that gets it done on the football field. He won that game yesterday. That was all Russell Wilson.
So you brought up the word leader a handful of times there. It's the first thing Cris said this morning. And we hear about quarterbacks and leadership and the importance of it. But I don't know if people very often who've been in those huddles explain why it's so important. Why, for the other 10 guys in that huddle, is it critical to not only have a quarterback who can deliver the ball on time, be accurate, be healthy, those things, but have a guy who inspires confidence the way, Russell Wilson, they said he was the Pied Piper at NC State, went to Wisconsin, was instantly named team captain, gets to Seattle as a rookie. He's a team leader. Go ahead, Sam.
I will say, even as an elite athlete, you have moments where you don't believe in yourself. And it's nice in the battle that there's a calming voice or someone to look at you and say, I got you, man. I got your back. We're in this together. You're not alone. It's not as if You're on a golf course. It's 145 yards. It's just you and the golf course. No, you feel like, man, I got some other people with me. And they can say little things, little triggers that make you play better than what you are. That's the quarterbacks that we want as an elevator. That offensive line in Seattle has been bad, and it's been bad for a long time. They spent the least number of resources on the whole team on that unit. Their wide receiving core, they're not deep. But you will never hear Russell Wilson complain about the lack of game planning, the lack of offensive line, the lack of wide receiver. And that's powerful for guys in the locker room who know, I got beat, left guard, I got beat. Russ never says anything, takes the blame, and covers up for a lot of the mistakes. Him being able to buy time is a receiver's dream. I got all day to get open because of that guy. Offensive line, I missed my guy. He avoids a sack. So those things are very, very empowering to me when I was a player, because as much as I talk trash and all that, man, there was moments I needed someone to say something to me. Now, most of the time, I was that guy to be able to look at people and say, man, we're going to be all right. You give us a little extra time, I'm getting ready to put this dude to sleep, and we're getting ready to score as a touchdown. We need that as professionals, B.
There was a time when Donovan McNabb got hurt. We brought in Jeff Garcia, and he said, listen, he walked into the huddle the first day of practice and said, everybody shut up. I'm the quarterback now. Everybody move in the right direction. We're going to get this thing done. And all the other 10 guys around him were confident and said, you know what? We ain't worried about the quarterback position. We just need to make sure we do our job. That's the same thing that Russell provides. You see, I watched last night. He threw some of the most pretty balls that I've ever seen. You're talking about that pass to Lockett in the end zone. There was a 6.3% chance of completing that football last night. The lowest percent chance since 2017. Russell Wilson found a way to get the ball to Lockett, where only Lockett could catch the football.
Yes.
That's a pretty ball. When you see him throw some of those deep balls, the touch that he has, dropping it in the breadbasket, that's what receivers are looking for. Russ inspires confidence because of his play. That's the type of leader that you want.
All that being said, there's still one Greg Zuerlein field goal away from losing that game. I just want to I want to ask about the Rams for a second, because we had so much talk about who the real Jared Goff is, how this team was going to use Todd Gurley, and it's almost as if they were listening. Throw Gurley in there, use him early and often, and then he kind of petered out towards the end. I'm just curious, Nick, what you thought. It was almost like they overcompensated.
Listen, Todd Gurley in the first quarter of the game, or first half of the first quarter, looked like Todd Gurley. Yeah. 6 carries, 31 yards, shifty, not going down on first contact. And the rest of the game, he had 9 carries for 20 yards. And it's unfortunate, but I think that is going to be typical. And the other thing that's going to be typical, how many catches for Todd Gurley? Let me look real quick. 3 for 6 yards. And that is Todd Gurley, when he was Offensive Player of the Year, he only, and I say only with a bit of an asterisk, had 1,300 yards rushing, which is an excellent season. But 1,300 yards rushing does not win you Offensive Player of the Year. It is because...
But when it's a part-time job.
Right. When you did that in addition to nearly 700 yards receiving, then all of a sudden you're 2,000 yards from scrimmage, you're the Offensive Player of the Year. He cannot take the volume of carries, and he is not the receiving threat he once was. That's why he can still look like Todd Gurley for moments. I don't think he lost his vision. I don't think he lost his talent. Yeah. I think it's his body won't let him do it for sustained periods of time.
The one thing I've seen from Gurley is that when he has to plan off that one leg, that injured leg, he can't get that explosiveness down the football field. The other thing you see, there's a difference between Todd Gurley in the first half and then the second half. The first half, he looks good. After halftime, you're sitting there and you're trying to keep that knee warm and keep it lubricated so you can go out there and play in the second half. He looks like a total different player. He's still a good slasher in the first half. You're right about the vision. But in that second half, he's a different player. We haven't seen that explosive Todd Gurley that we've seen in the past.
2 things to wrap it up. Todd Gurley, when you don't practice, you don't have the ability to have long-term durability. All right? So when you miss every other day in training camp where I'm building up my stamina that I can carry the ball 350 times, I can catch the ball for 7 times. So when you remove that, his overall endurance is going to be affected. And even to your point, if Zuerlein makes that field goal, I'm still talking about Russell Wilson's a bad man. With less, he's doing more. Offensive line, sometimes in shambles, receivers, no big-time players. Russell Wilson's still one of the best at doing this.
Back here at Brian Westbrook talking Packers traveling to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Aaron Rodgers loves this matchup. 6-2 career against Dallas, and Jerry World is the site of his last playoff win. Both teams 3-1, but Both teams coming off a loss, and both teams looking to get back on track in a log-jammed NFC. Brian Westbrook, who has the edge on Sunday, Packers or Cowboys?
I think the Cowboys have the edge. I love the way that they have the ability to run the ball. And last week, they got manhandled at the line of scrimmage. And I think all week long, they focus on not allowing that to happen again, but being able to run the football. And we saw last week the Philadelphia Eagles did a great job of running the football right down the throat of the Green Bay Packers. And that's what Dallas is built for, to run the ball down your throat. We're not talking about go outside. We're saying, listen, we're going to double team up to your linebacker and make him make a play. Yep. And the Packers weren't able to do that. And I think Dallas comes into this football game and does exactly that. Manhandle them at the line of scrimmage and run the football.
Brian, I believe that Dallas is a little healthier. There's some question marks as far as their tackle, not their left tackle, but even their right tackle. Left tackle Tyron Smith, he's going to be out of this game with a high ankle sprain. The right tackle missed some time as far as practice. How healthy will he be? They're still a lot healthier than the Green Bay Packers because without Davante Adams, I would say that is 75% of their passing attack. Aaron Rodgers, a couple training camps ago, complained about the lack of development with the young wide receivers, and that was also after his buddy Jordy Nelson. Yep. Because Aaron Rodgers in his heyday, man, let's look at the personnel he had. Then he had Bennett at tight end. He had Jordy Nelson. He had Greg Jennings. Like, he had some real legitimate threats. It's not that way. And I do believe this will be the toughest game for Matt LaFleur to build a coach because without Davante Adams, as we could see, they did the Todd Gurley thing. He wasn't active in week number 3, so in week number 4, they tried to force feed him, and he had a monster game. If he stays healthy, I believe they pull out that win, Nick, and you probably believe that at the end of the game. So Matt LaFleur is going to have to, for the first time, really come up with the game plan because he's got to convince me that he likes running the football. Yeah. I thought Aaron Rodgers coming into the season, man, Matt LaFleur, he's a Kyle Shanahan disciple. Man, these guys run the ball. But in Tennessee, before he got there, they ran the ball. Now that he's gone,
they're still running the ball.
They're still running the ball. In Green Bay, where he is calling the shots, they're not running the ball. So what is the coach's identity, Jenna? I know you always like to see that, but what are they trying to do? Green Bay needs to come out of this game with a sure enough offensive agenda that we're going to be more physical, and that's because Matt LaFleur, that's be his stamp on the game.
But, Nick, do they have the weapons to come out and be more physical?
Well, so I don't know that they do. And which is why we've talked a lot today, obviously, about the game last night. And the people who caught touchdown passes last night were Tyler Lockett, a rookie DK Metcalf who can't run side to side, a physical freak, been going straight line and do a little curl, I think you'd call banana route, the one he caught the touchdown on, where he ends up curling out to the right. A guy who, I'm not going to lie to you, I wasn't familiar with him. When I saw it, I said, D. Moore. I was like, that's not DJ Moore. He's on David Moore. Okay, that's the wide receiver who caught it. And then a running back, Chris Carson. I say that to say this. Aaron Rodgers is supposed to be better than Russell Wilson. Now, I don't know if he still is, but he's supposed to be. Make it work with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Make it work with Geronimo Allison. Make it work with a pedestrian receiving core when you know that Dallas is going to have some issue or should have some issue getting to the quarterback because you've got the best left tackle in football. You've spent a lot. I know Balaga's banged up on the right side. We'll see if he plays. Yep. But it's the Cowboys offensive line that's supposed to be hurt, not the Packers. So it can't just be, well, Davante Adams isn't there, so therefore Aaron Rodgers loses all his magical powers. I don't think you're going to have to score 35 points to win this football game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it is going to be a question of, can you make a few big plays down the field? And for the Packers, can you do in Week 5 what you did so well in Weeks 1 through 3, but not in Week 4, which is turn the opponent over while not turning the ball over yourself. They lost the game on a tip pass interception against Philly, and they didn't turn Philly over. They were leading the NFL or second in the NFL in forced turnovers through 3 weeks. So you're going to have to force a mistake from Dallas, and you're going to have to play a clean game. They do that, and Rodgers plays as well as he can despite limited weapons. They can go to Dallas and win.
At the end of the game against the Eagles, Aaron Rodgers didn't look comfortable, partly because of the wide receivers, and he didn't have comfortability with those guys. The other part is that defensive line was getting after him. And they didn't have a bunch of sacks, but he had to move around in that pocket. And listen, I think Aaron Rodgers, the young Aaron Rodgers, moved around the pocket flawlessly, got the ball out. It looked like he looked a little different on Thursday night a week ago. And so when you think about it, Robert Quinn, who's played well after coming off of suspension, now this Dallas front four has to get after this quarterback. If they want to win this game, which is why I give the edge to Dallas, they have to be able to get after the quarterback, not just sacks, just to affect them so that now it's a scramble drill. And how does Aaron Rodgers respond with receivers he's not very comfortable with in the scramble drill? You know, CC, Devontae Adams know if I'm coming towards you, you go deep, and I'm going to throw it to you.
Right.
Do these younger receivers have that same type of connection with Aaron Rodgers, especially if he has to move around that pocket?
The first question was who has the edge. The biggest edge in this game is the weapons that Dak's going to be able to throw to. Amari Cooper seems like he's healthier than last week. Didn't have a great outing against Lattimore of New Orleans. He was all over him and definitely won that battle. But Dallas, when we've seen them, the last half of last season, the 8 games and the playoffs, and the first 3 games of this season, Dak and those wide receivers, when they are constantly making plays, that's big plays down the field, and the ball don't have to travel far. Because if my offensive line is banged up, like they are, Nick, as far as the Cowboys, get the ball out of Dak's hands quick, and those wide receivers making yards after the catch. That's been one of the biggest things with Dallas over that stretch. Last week, they didn't make those plays, didn't make those catches. That would be the difference because Aaron Rodgers is going to be challenged. Dak should be able to take advantage of that matchup.
And I want to circle back to something you started with, which is Ezekiel Elliott. Packers have the 26th ranked rush defense. The reason they lost that Philly game is because Philly had their best rushing day of the year. Jordan Howard, of acquisition in the offseason I liked, finally looked like the Jordan Howard that I thought he could be for Philadelphia all year long in that football game. Conversely, Zeke had his worst game, you could argue, of his career against New Orleans, 18 for 35. There's in the analytics community offseason, you heard the Cowboys alluding to it. Big question about the value of running backs in 2019. How can a running back win you a game? How important is that position? Well, in this game, if you might be without both your tackles, you mentioned the wide receivers have the edge. Jair Alexander is still an elite corner in this league.
Yes.
And he might be able to shut down Amari or at least hamper Amari to a degree, especially if Amari is still somewhat limited. Ezekiel Elliott should be able to, on his own, put the Cowboys in position to win this football game. If he is the guy that the Cowboys paid him to be, which is the best running back in football, hands down. We talk about how they can't win if he doesn't have a great game. Him having a great game doesn't guarantee a win, but they're 1-8 when he doesn't have 75 yards rushing. He's got to go for $110 or more on this Packers defense. To me, that's where it starts for Dallas if they're going to hold on to home field advantage and get to 4-1.
It's going to be a good game. Greg Zuerlein's 44-yard go-ahead field goal last night missed wide right, with L.A. leaving Seattle taking the L. 30-29 your final. Rams fall to 3-2 on the season, but Jared Goff knows this is familiar territory. He is not ready to hit the panic button just yet.
We've been 3-2 before and made the playoffs 2 years ago, and if I remember correctly, the Patriots were 3-2 last year and won the Super Bowl, and so there's a lot of game left. You know, we've got a really good group in there, and we're going to bounce back. We're fine. You know, obviously you don't want to lose 2 in a row at any point, but we got another big division one next week, so we got no time to waste.
We spent all week talking about who the Rams are, what their identity is, why they're so seemingly veering off course from the team that we saw last year. Does last night's change your perception of the LA Rams?
Well, it didn't change my perception, but it did help. I did see that Sean McVay, he realized that people are starting to get on to him. So he started saying, okay, I'm getting ready to come up with a little changeup. I know my fastball is wicked. That's one tight end, one back, a lot of motion, a lot of deception. I'm going to run the ball and then play action fake off of that. Well, last night, it wasn't about deceiving you because they ran the speed sweep. So it fit everything that the defense was seeing. They put Todd Gurley going downhill immediately. So anytime that you wanted to make a play fake, it had already set itself up. They utilized 2 tight ends more than I had ever seen him when they had Cooper Kupp available. And they moved the tight ends not only from a tight formation, they moved them out wide, played them at wide receiver. They got them in some mismatches down the middle of the field. You can see late in the game took advantage of that. And Jared Goff made some difficult throws last night. Sometimes wide receivers and tight ends didn't help him. A couple drops. One led to that interception later on. But I thought that Jared Goff did himself a service by, in a tough, gutty situation where Russell was spectacular, but I thought Sean McVay did a great job of changing things up. You couldn't predict where they were going to go with the football. Now, from one problem, I know Brandon Cooks, he gets hurt later in the game. I need him to be targeted more than one time. All right, they're paying him too much money. He is a quality wide receiver, and we need to be able to get away from Cooper Kupp. If you look at the difference in target, I think Cooper Kupp was targeted
17, and Cooks had the one catch. He was targeted 3.
17
times. 17 to 3.
Like, we can't have that type of disparity. Cooper Kupp is not that. He's not
good.
a better wide receiver than Brandon Cooks. So for me, where's the creativity for Brandon Cooks to be able to help get him open? So I do like that they use the tight ends, but I need to see Cook to be a higher percentage of those targets.
And listen, the tight end usage clearly caught Seattle off guard.
Yes.
Whatever defensive game plan they had, it was not a lot of preparation for double tight end sets, which is why you had 183 yards receiving by those 2 tight ends, Higbee and Everett. That's the most.
Yeah, they were outstanding.
That's the most receiving yards by the tight ends in the Sean McVay era by an enormous margin. So they did some good things. And I think Jared Goff was better yesterday than his 83 quarterback rating would say, because two touchdowns that he could have thrown for, Gurley ends up running in at the goal line. He has the 1 interception work against him. It could have been a really gaudy stat line with him dropping back 50-some times last night, throwing 49 passes. And so I think Goff showed some positive progression. But here's what's negative for the Rams. In the Sean McVay era, this is the first time this late in the season they're not in first place in their division. They don't have a ton of history of coming from behind in that division. They have history of dominating that division. Not only are they not in first place, they actually sit here in third place. Seattle's 4-1. San Francisco quietly 3-0. We forgot about them because they had the early bye week. Nobody should have a bye in week 4, by the way. That's a separate discussion. And I don't feel no better about Todd Gurley. And that's going to be the elephant in the room for the Los Angeles Rams all year. And they evidently didn't feel much better about Malcolm Brown, their third-round pick, because he got 1 carry for 3 yards. The only flash play they had running the ball was you had Gurley with a couple nice runs early, and then a play Brandon Cooks ran the ball for 27 yards. The only other way they got the ball in his hands. So they only ran the ball 18 times in a game that they surprisingly had it was a 1-point game at halftime. They were right there at halftime when it looked like Seattle could have taken over the game. So it's not like they were forced out of their running game. They just didn't feel comfortable in it. But I did like that they weren't so reliant on the 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 1 running back. Now teams are going to have to game plan for the tight ends more. And you saw Jared Goff, I think, play his best game of the season after 7 turnovers in his previous 2 games of the year. I thought he played his best game.
So I'm a little higher on what I saw from the Rams last night. I thought finally we saw Sean McVay change things up at least a little bit. You had some questions about Aaron Donald. I think he looked tremendous last night.
Yep.
Listen, you may only be able to use Todd Gurley in spurts, but at least you know he can still play. It wasn't a dominant performance, but he hasn't lost the tangibles. He just lost that ability to push off on that injured knee. And then, Jared Goff, coming off the performance he had, was able to at least keep them in it. Greg Zuerlein hits that field goal, and they win that game despite a tremendous performance from Russell Wilson.
Yeah, there is no doubt. You can take some positive things from it. I would say Sean McVay, his coaching style, how he attacked the defense. Jared Goff, how he played. I thought he played a good game. It just happened that Russell played an almost perfect game. And also, I like how they got into the red zone. They took advantage of the opportunities. That's how they made the game close at halftime compared to Seattle, settling for field goals. They were able to in a shorter period of time. But last night, going into the game, one of the goals should have been to, how do we get to 30 minutes time of possession? Under Sean McVay's era there in a short period of time in L.A., in 24 games that they have had at least 29 minutes time possession, he is 23-1. And last night, I looked at time possession after the game, 24-42. So that's the reason why you don't get the carries with Malcolm Brown. That's why you don't get Todd Gurley to 20 touches there coming out of the backfield. Those extra first downs, they give you extra looks at the defense to be able to wear that defense down. So that's still a goal for them, even though some very, very positive signs from a couple different areas.
I think positive signs from the passing game, but I'll disagree with you in this regard. I didn't see a lot of positive signs outside of the passing game. And I know if they make the field goal, it's a different narrative. But They didn't make the field goal. And to my eye, they were lucky to be a field goal away. Right. Seattle blew the end of the first half, I thought, terribly. Seattle also had the ball with a chance to ice the game, ran a bizarre option play that could have gone disastrously for them on 3rd and short, which gave the Rams another opportunity. But you look at the other concerns. I mentioned Todd Gurley. I didn't think the offensive line played great yesterday. Now, Seattle didn't get home with a bunch of sacks, but Jared Goff was under duress. You felt like Jadeveon Clowney was constantly in the backfield. And Brian Westbrook mentioned this earlier. They got a pair of potentially excellent corners who aren't playing like it. Talib and Peters, coming off the game against Tampa where they got roasted, did not play very well yesterday. And that is, I wonder if Aqib Talib, who has been one of the better players at his position for a long time, if he's getting a little old. And Marcus Peters has always been a boom-bust guy. You saw it in the Tampa game. He got roasted for a touchdown. The next possession, he had a pick six the other way. That secondary is not playing to the level that we've been accustomed to with those two guys under Wade Phillips.
And that's why we need Wade Phillips to build it, because he's been kind of the solidifying force in that. We worried when we bring these highly volatile personalities together, as long as they were winning, it would be okay. But what we've seen in the last couple weeks, we have seen guys running wide open in the secondary, and they know they're on TV, and they're starting to point at their teammates. He was pointing at Johnson, the safety. Why aren't you back? He didn't have to do that. We knew the safety had given up the big play, but he was trying to show the distinction between, no, that wasn't me, even though I chased the guy into the end zone. All right, that was someone else's responsibility. Talib, in zone coverage, guarding the man in the corner of the end zone, Russell Wilson scrambling. He decides to, I'm going to come off my responsibility and make a play when Russell was baiting him the whole time, not wanting to run, and the linebacker was there for Russell's responsibility.
Talking about the Chris Carson, the game-winning touchdown.
He tries to do too much. He comes off him in the end zone, and Russ still makes the toss in the back. So you'll start to see. Let's watch this over the next month or so and see if this finger-pointing continues.
This sets up an interesting matchup next week against the undefeated San Francisco 49ers.
Correct.
Does this now become a must-win for the Rams?
Oh, next week against the Niners? As close as you can come to in week 6. I'm telling you, I'm going to sound like a broken record if you watch this show a lot. The NFC is different. The NFC has 3 teams with a losing record right now. The NFC in the NFC West, the division we're talking about, you got a 3-0, a 4-1, and a 3-2. 3-2 in the AFC South would be in first place by themselves. 3-2 in the AFC North would be in first place by themselves. In the NFC West, it's in third place by themselves. So yeah, no matter what San Francisco does this weekend or Monday night against Cleveland, the Rams can't go 3 straight losses. They can't go a loss to Tampa in their building, then a divisional loss to Seattle, and then another divisional loss to San Francisco. So yeah, it's as close to a must-win game as a team could have in week 6, I would argue, next week for them.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.